Okay, we are the NSIC live scoring website group. Our sponsor is Pete Roberts. I'm Brian Rachel.
I'm Avery Lee.
And I'm Justin Marsland.
So starting off here, going over the project objective. The objective of our project was to migrate an existing website to a AWS server, refactor all the JavaScript for the website. We had to receive XML files in an EC2 instance and then forward those to an S3 bucket. And our sponsor wanted us to keep the design as simple as possible, keeping it kind of close to what he had to start. Moving on to the specifications. So the website displays scores for softball and baseball, football, soccer, volleyball, and basketball. Some of the things we keep track of, softball and baseball, we had to keep track of runs, innings, whether it's the top or bottom of an inning, and how many outs there were. For football, which is probably the most complicated one, we had to do score, timeouts, time and down and distance, ball location, and who has possession of the ball. For soccer, we had to do goals, time, and which half it was. For volleyball, we had to do individual set scores, so who had won how many sets so far, and individual set scores, what the score is of that specific set and who's won so many sets at that moment. And then basketball, we had to keep track of the time, score. If it was men's, we did half. If it was women's, we had to do quarter. Some of the constraints we had was, like I mentioned earlier, was to keep the UI design as closely to the original as possible. And then we had to receive XML files via FTP because that is how the NCAA handles it now. And we didn't want to have them try to change in how they handle their files.
Okay, for our block diagram, which you'll see on the next slide, it starts by the XML files are generated from the NCAA using a program called LiveStats. And every time there's an update in the game, a new XML file is sent with the updated scoring information. And this file is generated anytime a button is clicked in LiveStats. And that can be anything from stopping the time to entering new scoring information. So every game has kind of multiple XML files sent throughout the game. Really anytime there's just any sort of update in it. And then the pages for the website rotate out depending on the season. Right now, if you go to nsicscores.com, it's baseball and softball. And in the fall, you'll get football, soccer, and volleyball. So they kind of just rotate out depending on the season that you're in. And these are all accessed through a central homepage that displays a list of the current subpages. So here's the diagram that I referred to earlier. The NCAA at the top there generates the files and they get sent to an EC2 instance through FTP. Mounted on that EC2 instance is an S3 bucket where the actual website is housed and running on. And so once they get sent to that EC2 instance, they're immediately also put in the S3 bucket that's on there. And the XML files are then read through JavaScript on each of the individual sports pages. And then those sports pages are kind of accessed through a central homepage, as I mentioned earlier, which can of course be reached through just any web browser. The page designs we didn't really touch too much. They were made by our sponsor. Each one has a different color that you'll see later. And they just were meant to be simple and kind of convey the accurate information needed. We took the JavaScript for all the sports and kind of broke them up from one single function into multiple objective specific functions. So basically everything that was mentioned in the specifications page is its own function now, which kind of makes it a lot more compact and readable. The page only refreshes the necessary items, so team names, which will never change during the game, don't need to be refreshed, and we made it do that. The tables are dynamically created now when the game starts, so beforehand, the NSICScores.com had just a fixed amount of tables on the page. Now there's just tables created for the necessary number of games, and all of these are stored in an S3 bucket on AWS. So as I mentioned, everything's moved off of the local server onto AWS using S3. The pages update scores much more frequently now. It's just set to 10 seconds, where before it might have been 30 or 90 seconds. It could be moved faster if needed. The XML files get received in the proper directory. So each sport kind of has its own directory where all of these files go to, and it was largely, the file structure was kind of copied from the existing server, so not much changes are going to be needed there. The JavaScript's a lot more readable and compact now. As I said, there's a lot less. It's been reduced considerably, and because it's in separate functions, a lot more readable and easy to use. And the website can handle thousands of requests at a given time because S3 scales things dynamically. For all practical purposes, this should be able to handle anything thrown at it. And thousands of requests is going to be plenty for this website. And now Justin will take over for the demo.
Here's the home page of the NSIC Scoreboard. As you can see, for the purposes of this demo, we're going to have men's and women's basketball be the live sports of the given time. But we tried to keep this as similar as possible to the original design, the original UI design that was made by our sponsor. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on men's basketball. And in here, you can see we've got 3 files in the system, so it automatically generated 3 tables. Then if I go to live stats, and I can adjust some of these, so I'll hit start clock, wait a couple seconds, and then we'll stop it and go back to NSIC scores. And you should see the game on the left, the Augustana St. Cloud game, time go from 2:05 to 2:03. Yep. Excellent. So then I'll just start the clock again. We'll make a shot, I guess. Let's do St. Cloud will get a 3-pointer. So put that in. This will all be done by the people running the system, not our website, but for the purposes of this demo, this is how it works. So stop the clock, and then if we watch the St. Cloud game again, they should go 29 to 31, and the time should adjust. Perfect. So that's how all of the different pages will do it, but now I'll show women's basketball. And this is a game in overtime, so there's no timer or anything like that. And I'll just manually go to the next pages because I'm not going to demo how each of the scores change because it's pretty much the same from all of them. So I'll just show our pages. Next, I'll show you the football page. This is what it looks like on football. It's got a lot more information on it than the other ones, like we said before, like the downs and all of that. And then let's do soccer. Yeah, there it is. This is what a final game looks like. And since there's only one file in there, it's just got the one table. Next, I'll show volleyball. This one's a little bit more complex. It's got the games that have been played and each of their scores, and then who's won the sets, so that you can keep track of all of that. And after that, we'll do softball, or baseball, my bad. There's a final baseball score, and then last I'll do softball. And this is what it looks like when it's in progress. You can see it's got the top of the inning and then the outs as well. So that's our demo.